Good morning. Hand today is A7 of spades. Played this last night, and it's a blind versus blind hand. So folds around to me. It is A7 spades. I have my blind versus blind range right here. I do open it up if I think the player is folding too often, but his fold to steal stats 55%, so I'm going to play pretty reasonable here. So A7 suited, definitely in there. I raised to 4 big blinds, which is a standard, and villain 2 calls. Villain 2 looks to be playing 24-15. However, when we look at his pre-flop call stat, it's 45% for the big blind. Looks to be playing fairly loose in the big blind. The steals stat, his fold blind to steal, only 22% from the big blind. His call steals 78%, so he hasn't 3-bet it. Hasn't 3-bet from the blinds, and maybe he doesn't. He does seem to be a little bit passive. So with what his range is, I gave him something like this. I'm gonna include like queens plus aces, and then I think we could take it out and see how that affects it. But for now, he hasn't really demonstrated. He hasn't really 3-bet versus a steal. 0 out of 14, so maybe he doesn't 3-bet with those hands. Maybe he just plays them slowly, and that's a possibility. And I've already spent quite a bit of time waiting for the solver to run, so let's see what it says. All right, flop comes down 10-9-7. I think that's kind of a flop that favors a caller. Probably has many more middle cards in his range than my range. This is I think a pot where I don't really want to bet it because I don't think I'm getting I'm generating a lot of folds. I have bottom pair, which isn't super strong, and in terms of my backdoor draw, I don't really have a whole lot. So I think our appropriate action is to check. Villain checks behind. I think that's probably okay because again, he's probably thinking the same thing. I think it's a board where neither of us are ahead by too much. 3 heart comes out. I check. Villain bets half pot. I don't think I could fold. With 3rd pair, I just went ahead and called just to see what he has, because I think at this point he could take a stab at it with a wide range of bluffs, including hearts. Just to see what I do if I fold. And then ace comes out, and I just checked since he took the lead on the turn. I'm hoping that he's just going to fire again, and I pick up a pot, pick up that bet. So what does GTO say? Let's check it out. So according to GTO, we are going to be checking it. I agree. I think if I had an 8, if I had a 10, ace 8, ace 10, ace 6, something that gives me like the gut shot draw, we would be betting it. But it looks like we are checking a huge part of our hands. We're checking almost 85%, so 84% is check. So I think that's appropriate. Villain should be betting about 44%. He doesn't. So his checking range includes some top pair hands, but middle pair, weak pair, could have ace high. He's going to have some of these gut shots and open-ended draws and so forth. So he checks. I think 3 hearts the same as a 2 hearts in terms of its effect on the board, which is minimal. So now once we've checked, now we start to bet a little bit more, 50%. Ace 7 is still a check. I would expect this increase in our bet frequency. If we had any hearts, backdoor hearts, we're probably going to be betting at that point. And note, even with the backdoor hearts, backdoor hearts or diamonds or spades, we're not going to be betting because again, I kind of feel like this board is almost like a neutral board. Our equity versus opponent's equity is going to be, I think, fairly close to each other. No one's going to be like super strong on it. I think both of us could have potentially a straight draw, but I don't think I think all of us could have trip 10s, trip 9s, trip 7s, and so forth. So we checked it. I checked behind, which So far, I think our play is appropriate. I think if we had jack, trip tens, we're betting, trips we're betting, eights, over pairs we're betting. Were we betting over pairs here? No, so even ace, king, queen, jack. And I think that's interesting. I think that's something that I'm starting to understand a little bit, is that even with these over pairs on this board like this, and we're out of position, it's probably better for us to check, like check call. So if they check, he bets. We're going for a check call in that situation. Obviously, the times we have our trips, we're probably going for a check raise. So if he bets, and also, yeah, some of those ace eights. But we checked. I checked. Now villain bet 4, and I think he could have as weak as, you know, like a middle pair hand, maybe a weak pair hand. Could also have a draw, as I said, maybe the heart draw. He bet, and yeah, if we made it here with 3 of a kind, if we were playing, you know, like passively with our trips, now's the time we're going to be check raising those over pairs. Top pairs, we have very small percentage. Say we're going for a check pair, but our middle pair, our weaker pair, a7, that we are calling. Notice that like the under pairs, 2s, 4s, 5s, we're just going to fold. 6s still calling because we have our gut shot potential. So I call, and then ace of diamonds comes out, and this is where I was really curious. What do I do? And it looks like if we make it with this line, then we should have been betting here. We should be leading out. And I do have that ace-7 of spades is in my range here, so we should be leading out. And it looks like we're leading out even, yeah, all of our 2-pair hands, all of our sets. I guess since we have a strong hand, we've got a lot of value. We could get, you know, a 10 jack might call, 9 jack might call, maybe even 10-8, 9-8. So I think on this hand, it's probably that river. I probably should have just fired out. Yeah, it helped. It seems strange that we were doing check call, or planning check call, then check call, but I think we should be betting here. So bet, and then if he raises us, we're going to be forced to call with our 2-pair hands. We're going to be folding our weak pairs. Some of our top pair we could call. We don't have fortunately, we don't have a whole lot of those. Ace jack and ace 8 we fold. Ace king, ace queen. Yeah, I think the ace jack, ace 8 we fold because we block some straight draws, which makes it less likely that he's betting or that he's raising a busted straight, busted draw. So all right, so I think that looks okay. Now let's go back and let's just try. If we say, you know, blind versus blind, he would have raised us something like that. How does that change? How does that change our answer? So I'll run the solver and I'll be back when it's done. All right, so took a while again, but I kind of think our strategy is going to remain mostly the same. I think the only real change is we could disregard the overpairs. I don't think he's going to have them. We took him out because we think he would have 3-bet. So I think our plan's still kind of with aces and kings. This is just kind of check raise. Even with queens, we're probably just going to check raise. So if he bets, I'm sorry, not check raise, check call those hands. The trips would be the ones that we check raise. Looks like jacks is starting to be a check raise with the ace 8, and I think that's the same as before. You know, those the jacks and the ace 8 where we just check here, we're using those as a check raise. to balance out the times we check with trips, 10s, 9s, and 7s. So I think our check's appropriate. We have Villain, who should be betting, his big hands. Some of his top pair, middle pair, weak pair is going to be checking his open enders, mostly betting. So when he checks, it doesn't mean that he's super weak. It just means that he's, he could have a one pair hand, could have a draw, could have air. So then we're back to betting 50%. So once it goes check check, we're starting to become more aggressive with our trips, or two pair, or over pair. We're still playing mixed strategy here, about 50-50 or so. Not quite 50-50 bets checks, but it's 60-40 for that, 54-45. Over pair 60-40, so say 60-40. Top pairs betting top and middle pairs, so 10 and 9 looks like we are betting, except Jack 9. Jack 9's probably taking it a little bit more cautiously because we have the open ender. So if we check and he bets, what kind of hands are we raising? We're raising over pair plus. We not raising a huge number of our draws. Yeah, we're not raising a huge number of our draws in this case, but we do have some check raising. So we check, Villain bets, Villain's betting. Now he's betting more middle pairs. I still think he's betting flush draws. He's betting open enders. So if he bets, I think I'm going to be calling a lot of my pairs. Weak pairs, 2s, 4s, 5s are folding. So I think it's still same general plan. And then once we hit the ace, it looks like we are now betting our most of our top pair plus. Our weaker pairs are just going to be there for calling. We do have 6s that we could bet because we're blocking some of those straight draws. I'm sorry, because we don't block the straight draws. So it could mean that Villain could have them in his hand. I think the 6s are being used as a bluff in this case, to balance our sets and our two pairs and so forth. Because I think if we bet and Villain calls, I think we're going to be behind. And I think that's how it goes. And it's because we don't have enough of these no-mate hands, enough of these king queens in our hands to balance those bets that we're making with top pair plus. So overall, it looks like we do make the mistake on the river. Once we rivered that two pair, we should have been betting. If Villain bets, do we call? Probably. I mean, the few two pair that we have, we call if we get to there. So I mean, check call is going to be appropriate, but I think the reason we're not is because I don't think we're going to see that bet frequently enough. All right, so hopefully you enjoy this. If you did, look tomorrow for another hand.